Welcome everybody, I'm John Wally, and today we're going to be talking about backups and restores within Tenable OT security. So let's go ahead and jump in. So the first thing we want to do is log into the port 8000 of our Tenable core appliance, because this is where a lot of our functionality is going to come when we talk about doing backups and doing restores. Now, once you log in, you may have this icon like what we have at the top to turn on administrative access. You're going to want to do that. So if you click on that and put in your password, that'll elevate your privileges. All right. Once we're there, we're going to want to go to our remote storage, and I'm going to show you why real quick. If we go to backup and restore, you're going to see an option for OT security, but you'll notice it's grayed out. And if we try to click on the box, we get this little no access icon that pops up. We're not allowed to do this. And the reason why is we haven't really configured the system to do any kind of backup yet. So we have to set up either a local storage or a remote storage in order to do those backups. And we'll talk about the differences between the two. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to click in this place where it says no backups can be taken until remote storage is configured. We can click here, or we can go to remote storage here. It takes you to the same place. And you'll see in our storage mode right now we're set up as remote storage, but we don't have any information for our remote storage. So one of the first things we want to do is we want to get a good download or a good backup, is we want to change this to be local storage. Now, if you have a remote server that you want to do your backups on, we're going to talk about that in the next section of this. But for the first part, we just want to grab a good backup. So I'm going to go to backup and restore. And what you'll find is now we have the ability to make a good backup. So I'm going to go over to Tenable OT Security. I'm going to check this box. And I'm going to go to take a backup now. Now this will take a few minutes and we'll speed up the video for this, but we're going to grab our backup. What you will notice is that you'll get a set of logs that come up at the bottom. If this doesn't come up automatically, you can see the drop down here. It may be blank like this. Just go down, click the OT Security Backups, and you'll be able to follow along with the process of that backup. All right, it looks like our backup has completed. It looks like it's about 1.91 gigabits in size, and everything backed up successfully, and it looks like our system is going to start running again. So let's go over to our core appliance and log in real quick just to make sure that everything's working. Excellent. All right, so now we have our good backup. The next thing you're going to want to do is download your backup, because you don't want your backup to be stored only locally on the machine, because if anything happens, something gets corrupted or the file gets deleted, you'll have no way to restore. So we're going to go ahead and download, and we'll fast forward through this section too. All right, so now we've done a full backup. We got that done locally. We downloaded it to a safe location for right now. It's just in our downloads, but if you're in a real environment, you would want to put this somewhere safer than just a downloads folder. And so we have a good backup. We've downloaded it to our local machine, so if anything happens to our device, we're in a good place. So there's another way we can do backups though. We can actually set it up to do a remote backup by itself. And so you don't have to go in there, do a backup, download to a file. You can actually have a remote storage where you can back up on a regular basis. So this next section, we're going to be talking about remote backups instead of local backups, where we have to go through all this manual process. So we're going to go back to remote storage. And we're going to switch this over to remote again. And so we're going to have some information though. We're going to have to know where we want to store it, what device we want to store it on. We need to know what path we want to store it on. We need a username and we need a private key. And today we really don't have that yet. So the first thing we want to do is go over to our terminal. So I'm going to go to terminal here. I'm going to make this a little larger so you can see it. All right, so the first thing we want to do is create a key pair. So we're going to go ahead and say SSH keygen, and then we're going to tell it that we want to do a -T, And let's say that we're going to do this ED25519. I'm going to hit return. It's going to ask me if what I want to name it and where do I want to save it. The default is fine. I'm not going to enter a passphrase because I'm not going to be able to enter that on the other side. So I'm going to hit return here. And then it's going to create my key pair. Now, if you want to know where that's located, right now, I'm going to see pwd. We'll see that we're in our home admin folder. If we cd to .ssh and we do an ls here, you'll see our public and our private keys here. So we're good to go there. Now, the next thing we want to do is we need to figure out how to get that up to our other system because we need to be able to log in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to SSH into my remote storage computer to make sure that I have all the fingerprinting information that's there so that I don't get any errors. So I'm going to go ahead and SSH. I'm going to do it as admin as well, but this is my address is going to be 10.2.9.206, which is the address of my network-based storage. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to ask me to accept a fingerprint. I'm going to say yes. And then it's going to ask for a password. And I'm logged in. So the next thing I want to do is actually go right back in the opposite direction. So I'm going to do an SSH admin at 10.2.9.201, which is our Tenable OT core appliance. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to ask me for my fingerprint again. I'm going to say yes. It's going to ask me for a password. I don't necessarily need to add this password in here. I will just to make sure it's successful. And now we're logged in. So don't forget to exit out of these. Really, the only reason we wanted to do this is we wanted to add all the devices in the known host so we don't get these pop-ups for fingerprinting when we try to, the way that the backup works is through rsync, and we want to make sure that both of the devices know one another. I'm going to say exit here. I'm going to exit here. And the next thing I want to do is copy up my public key to my network storage server. So I'm going to clear this out real quick. And I'm going to do that. So I'm going to say SSH-copy ID. And then I'm going to say admin at 10.2.9.206. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to ask me for my password. And now it looks like our machine has actually uploaded our public key to our other system. So now that's going to allow us to log in to the remote server and using our key pairs without a password. All right. So now what we want to do is just to verify that this is working. I could do something like SSH admin at 10.2.9.206. We'll hit enter here, and you'll see it automatically logs in. It's in with our public and private key pair. I'm going to say exit. So now that that's done, we want to copy one more piece of information. So I'm going to go over to my .ssh directory, and we'll see we're already here, but I can say cd so that I go back home. We'll do an ls-la so you can see it. You'll see the .ssh folder. We want to change directories there. And I'm going to do an ls. And so you'll see a couple of things in here. You'll see our public key, you'll see our private key, and you'll see our known host. Well, what we want to do is grab the information from our private key. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to cat that information, ID. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm just going to copy this. So I'm going to take this right here, and I'm going to copy the information. You may get a pop-up when you do this, just accept that, but we want to get that. Now, this is secret, so you don't want to do this in front of anybody where you're showing your private key out here for this, where like this is a lab environment, we blow it away all the time, so it's not a big deal, but you don't want to share your private key outside of this environment at all. All right, so now that we have that information, we can go back to remote storage. I can say my host is 10.2.9.206. Our path is already set up on the other side. We have backups. Our user is admin. And then we have our private key that we can paste in here that we copied before. And now I can save the configuration. I'm going to save it. It said that it successfully connected to that. It saw our folder. It accepted our certificate. It was able to log in. And so now we're good to go. So now our remote storage is set up. I can go to backup and restore. And you'll see I'll be able to go in and do the same thing now. I can click on Tenable OT. I can take a backup. And this will actually back this up to our remote storage. So one of the other things you'll notice in here is we can set up a schedule now. So we can say we're going to take all the different backups at a very certain time. So for example, we have it enabled, it's active. The next one's going to be tomorrow at 2:30 a.m. in the morning. Now it's important to note whenever you're taking a backup, whether it's a local backup or it's a remote backup, your system will be unavailable for that time. So the last time we did a backup, it took us about 8 minutes to do that backup. So I would advise whenever you do these backups that they run in the middle of the night or sometime when the system being offline isn't as critical. Maybe that's during the day for you, maybe that's at night, depending on how you have a SOC and people that are watching the system, those sort of things. But do know that your system will be down somewhere between 3 and probably 10 minutes, depending on the size of your backup. We can also edit what time that is. If you click on the edit here, it works basically on a cron job. If you're not familiar with cron jobs, it lays it out in week, month, hour, and minute. If by looking at this, is we're basically saying that we want to collect that at 2:30 a.m. every day. We could do it once a week, and we could say, hey, we just want it on Fridays at 2:30 for an example. I typically don't use the month unless you wanted to say, hey, you just want a monthly backup, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. All right, so that's the way you set up remote backups. We could go ahead and take one and show that. And we'll kind of fast forward and I'll show you where it is in our other server as well. All right, it looks like our backup has been completed, and you'll notice it did not store it under our local available backups. If we go over to our terminal and we can just go check on things real quick, we're going to clear this screen out. Let's go back to our home directory and let's go over and log in and just make sure that that file's there. So I'm going to SSH from here. We're logged in. I'm going to go to my /backups. We're going to take a look. And so now you'll see that we have our backup file in our actual network storage device. So now it's held remotely. We don't have to worry if something's broken. It's saved for the future, and it's on a completely separate system from Tenable OT Core, unlike doing a local backup, where our local backups actually store everything locally. And then we have to download it and make sure we know where it is and it's a good place, those sort of things. So that's two different kind of backups that you can do, one local and one remote. Now this is where things get a little iffy. Let's say something bad happens on our system and we have to restore. Now, if you have minor problems on a system, this is pretty straightforward and easy to handle. But if you have major system problems, this can get more and more complicated. And I find a lot of organizations, while they may have great backup testing and a great way of like offloading those files, whether it's remote or locally, and they have good backup procedures in place, a lot of times the restore processes are lacking. I can't tell you how many times we've seen bad system problems out in the field, go to restore and it doesn't work. And even if you have a good backup, it could maybe not work. And Tenable OT right now has a bug in it that's a great example of this. So let's go in and start messing with some stuff in here so that we can break our instance of OT. Now, before I go into a full-blown breaking everything, I am going to make a few changes here. So the first thing I'm going to assume is that we lost our backup file here. So we want to assume that this is gone. So you don't have to do this. Don't follow along for this portion, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to delete that file. I'm going to make it so we can no longer get in there. So I'm going to go to my terminal. I'm going to exit out of here. Let's clear this up. give us a little more room so you can see here. And I'm going to change directories over to opt. And there's a big reason you need to learn this directory anyway. So I'm going to go Tenable core, and then we're going to go to remote storage, and then we're going to go to local storage in a second. So if you look here, we're in this Tenable storage, remote storage, and you would think this was named backup. And if you go searching through here, you're going to find all these backup storage, but your backup storage isn't actually named backup, even though there's a lot of them in there. It's actually going to be under this local storage. And so if we look at the permissions on this, and it's the reason that I didn't go any deeper, what you'll find is that we're not going to be able to go in and see that file, because you'll see that 0 permission at the end here on local storage. So what that means is I'm going to have to go in and make it so that I'm basically have to switch users into root. So I'm going to sudo bash here. I'm going to go in the local storage. Then you'll see the backup file. I'm going to remove this backup file. We'll make sure it's gone. And now what we'll see in our backups is that that file is gone. Let me zoom out a little bit. So let's say that we've lost our backup. It's no longer in here. We've made some configuration settings over on this side. So let's go log in here. I'm going to log in locally. And I'm going to make some changes. Like I'm going to delete a lot of my inventory here. So if I go here and I scroll down through here, let's just take all of these, and I'm not really going to delete them. I'm going to hide them all. We're going to say backup and restore. We're going to hide them. And now all these devices are hidden. We could do a lot more than that if we wanted to. We could mess with some of our policies. Let's go in and just start like disabling a ton of policies. We can mess with some of the settings. So somebody came in here, they didn't know what they were doing, and they messed with everything, and you don't know what they did or they didn't do. Even though we have all of our logs showing all the changes, it could be a lot to go out there and figure out every single thing they did and how to fix it. So we want to go and do a restore. But guess what? We've lost our file. Now here comes part of the problem. If I go and I say choose a file or upload a file, I'm not able to do it. It's going to say, hey, do I want to go do it? I'm going to go to my downloads. I'm going to click here. I'm going to say open. I'm going to tell it to restore. And it's going to end up giving me this error. It's going to say that there's a problem connecting. You want to confirm the connectivity. Click here, retry. If I click here, it's going to open up a new tab on port 8090. Now, currently this is a bug in Tenable OT. This will be fixed. If you run into this and you can't upload this file, it becomes problematic. And so I'm going to show you a workaround for this to make sure that you can restore your system. In general, though, you should have your regular restore right here within the file, and you can go ahead, choose the file, and it'll let you do that. But right now, we can't choose from a local backup. You'll see there's none available because we deleted that. So how in the world do we get a file up there? Well, before we get into that, let's cause some more problems in our system. We're really going to break it. So let's go over, right now we see it's functioning. And it's one thing to do a backup and a recovery that's like, oh, I'm just changing some settings, but the application's not broke. But what about when the whole application is broke? Can we prove that this restore really works? So I'm going to zoom in a little bit again here, and I'm going to change over to our opt directory. I'm going to go to Indigy. I'm going to do an ls here, and we'll see all these different database files. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove them. So I'm going to say sudo And we're going to remove all of these files, all these database files. So we have a database file here, a folder here. We have one here. We have one over here. We have two here. This will break. But one of the things that Tenable OT does is whenever you delete these database files, it'll try to recreate them, which even makes it worse for us in some ways. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of these. And this is going to cause havoc in our system. Now they'll start rebuilding pretty quickly here, but if I go over to Tenable OT and I hit refresh, you're going to notice that it's not working the right way. So I'm going to go ahead and do a restart here. I'm going to say reboot. I'm going to tell it to do it now, just to make sure that you see exactly what condition the system's in. All right, it looks like it's back up. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as my admin on port 8000. You see our system is up. If we go back over to Tenable OT login, you're going to notice something different immediately. The first thing you're going to notice here is under our username and password. Remember, we were integrated with Active Directory. That's now gone. So we know something's wrong here. I'm going to go ahead and try to log in here. We're going to say OT admin. And we'll say, uh-oh. We're not able to get in. So we know something's wrong here. Like, did we lose our users in here? So now we're having a bigger problem. Like, how in the world do we get into this device? So now the system's really broke. Our users are broke. We can't get in. If we were to go and look at what services we're running, we can go and do that. But we know overall that now we have a problem and we want to do a restore. If I go to my backup and restore, though, I don't have a local file. So if you go here, it says I have no local files available. If I try to upload, you'll see that we get the error that we talked about. So how do we fix this problem? How do we get that file back to the system? Now, there's a couple of ways we can do that. We can do it by uploading that file through something like a secure copy or an SCP. We can do that from our local system backup, or we could do that from our remote server backup. Either one would work. Because I'm here and I have a terminal, it's going to be a little bit easier for me to go over and log into my network area storage and move that up, because I can do it all right here from command line. Now, you may not have that capability, and we're not going to cover in this episode how to do everything command line, but there is a way to do a full restore from command line as well. If anybody wants to see that, put that in the comments below. I'd be happy to share that. It's even more involved in what we're doing here. So to get that file over, what I want to do is end up going over to our network storage device. So we're going to go to SSH, and we're going to say admin at 10.2.9.206. We're logged in. I'm going to change directories over to our backup file. And we can see our file here. Now, the next thing I want to do is SSH again, but all I'm going to do is copy this file over. So I'm going to say SCP for secure copy. I'm going to say I want this Tenable OT file. I'm going to tell it where I want it to go. So I'm going to say admin at 10.2.9.201 and put a colon and a tilde saying that I want to put this file in the home directory of admin. I'm going to hit return. It's going to ask me for my password. So now I'm going to exit out of this. Now I'm logged in here. I should be able to do an ls, and I see that I have my backup file. Now the next thing I want to do is move this file. And remember, the folder that we looked at before was op, Tenable core, remote storage, local storage is where we want it to go. And to get in there, because we can't view it, we need to be a sudo user. So I'm going to sudo move our Tenable tar file over to opt, Tenable core, remote storage, local storage, and hit enter. All right, so that should be moved over into our local storage. Now if I go over to my backup and restore, now you will see our backup file in the available backups. So now we can go in and we can say restore from a local backup storage. It'll give an option to do this, and we're going to hit restore. We'll hit restore again, and it'll start the restore process. All right, it looks like our system is completely restored. It's going to be starting up all of our services. If we want to scroll down here, we can do our drop down for our logs. We can look at our restore logs, and you'll see everything that came through. So it looks like our backup restore succeeded. So we should be in good shape now. Let's go ahead and refresh on this page, see if we can get a login. Might take a few minutes for our containers to come up. All right, and the first thing we'll notice here is now we have our Windows Active Directory capability of logging in again. So let's log in as a regular user, OT-admin. You'll see that our login's working and our system is back up and restored. Our policies are no longer turned off. So it's back from our restore point of where we came from before, as well as all of our inventory is in place. So if we go to our assets, they'll all be in here, and you'll see that we don't have any hidden assets any longer. They're gone. All right, so hopefully this video has been helpful. If it has, please hit that like button and subscribe if you want to continue seeing these. You'll get notification if you hit that little bell every time one of these come out. Thank you again and have a great day.